So I thought we'd do something a little bit different and kind of do a state of the game of War Robots in 2025. It's been a while since we kind of talked about these things directly, so I thought why not do that? So we'll go through a couple different things for War Robots, like the balance, economy, optimization, things like that, and kind of see where the game is at this period of time many years later. Remember, this game, I think this game was released, what was it, 2014? So 11 years in, and it is still alive, but let's kind of talk about some of the major things. Let's start with arguably one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, game balance as of right now. Honestly, when I think of game balance right now, it's kind of like, meh. It's kind of just on a repeat of what it always has been, or not always has been, what it has been for the past like 5 years. There seems to be like a bunch of different tiers of things. There's always, no matter what, every update, there is the tier, let's just call it the S plus meta tier. And that's the new stuff in the game, the newest stuff, and it is the most powerful stuff in the game. And then there's a secondary tier, which is usually the stuff that's slightly older, then there's lower than that, then there's lower than that. That newest tier is always the most powerful, but I think the sweet spot is the tier below that. In like the robots that I talked about the other day, in the best like investment robots, like, you know, the Pathfinder, Behemoth, Ravana, Luchador, those kind of robots seem to be the sweet spot where they're actually balanced and fun to use still and effective, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. But I feel like game balance is a never-ending thing in gaming, but then when you constantly add so much new equipment, it just makes the formula so much more difficult, and obviously the newer stuff is always the most powerful as well. So honestly, as much as I don't like that the new stuff is always there, it just kind of seems like it's been part of Warbots for so long, I can't even imagine it changing anytime soon. And yeah, that's about it. Like, I don't know what to say about it. Like, it's obviously not going to change. We've talked about this so many times over the years, maybe hundreds of times. And now it's just on a rinse and repeat. Okay, so next let's talk about the War Robots economy. So the War Robots economy is kind of in the same boat as the balancing, where they're very intertwined, where the newest robots are always the best robots, but they're also the most difficult to get unless you pay, which isn't good. And then as the robots stay in the game longer, they become easier to get. And this process has been on like rinse and repeat for years now. So I feel like there's not anything really, it's kind of the same as the balance of the game. It's kind of like, man, we kind of know what to expect as time goes on. If you really like a robot or Titan, it will become easier to get as time goes on. There's no doubt. It's happened with every single thing. Like, think about every robot when it's first come out. Whether it's the, I don't know, the Condor, the Curie, the Eiffel. Remember when the Eiffel came out and it was impossible to get? And now it's way easier to get over time. And that kind of applies to all weapons, robots, modules, and everything. Even ultimate robots, they are very difficult to get right off the bat. But then over time, they do get easier. And yeah, so it's kind of intertwined with the economy. The war robots, let me be clear, by no means is the economy in balance good. Especially if you're trying to chase the meta and be in the meta. But it kind of, I don't know, it's so annoying that it's just on rinse and repeat like this, but I feel like it's kind of just the way it is, which is annoying to say. Okay, so next up is optimization, and this category or topic this is gonna get me super annoyed and pissed. We all know about the rebalance that happened, like, what was it, a month or two ago? And then for the next week, like 2 weeks, the hangar was completely frozen up and it was pretty much unusable. And that was fixed after like a week or two, thank God. But then, for some reason, it seems like the lag in the game has just got progressively worse, where I'm kind of playing the game sometimes and I'm like, dude, I feel like I think it's just built in into my mind that the game is just gonna lag out so bad. And certain weapons and robots have taken a massive hit. Like flames and rockets are more difficult to use only because of the lag. I know certain platforms don't have this issue as bad. Like I know Steam is by far the best platform for probably, you know, optimization performance things because it's PC, but I know for Android, because that's what I play on, it's rough. And I'm sure I play a little bit of iOS too, and iOS doesn't seem much better. So those things are, in my mind, inexcusable. You have to have a smooth running game, because better running game, more players, more playing hours, better for game, growth. It's not that complicated. So optimization has taken a step back, which is extremely annoying because I think this is literally one of the most important things in all of game development history. If you don't have a game running properly, it's going to be a negative, an obvious negative impact on your player base. And it's pretty inexcusable in my opinion. And I think it has to be improved ASAP because, like I said, it is playing game to game. Playing a lot of games, you kind of accept it, but you do notice it even after accepting it that it's just built in. All right, then that brings us to the next topic, which is kind of built-in optimization. Hackers. I feel like this category has actually been slightly improved over the years. There was the peak of hackers where, by the peak, I mean the most blatant quantity of hackers in game, where it was like maybe 30% of games you would drop, battles you would drop into, there would be hackers. And then I think it was in the last, how long ago was it now? Was it 6 months ago when Pixonic introduced the new anti-cheat hacking into the game? And I do think it's actually made a big difference. There's still hackers in the game, obviously, but I think they're a lot less, or a lot harder to find, which is a good thing. And in that case, I'll give the developers credit. They've actually minimized hackers. Dude, it used to be so freaking bad. I remember that one year. It was like in the summer of, I don't know, 2022, 2023. And there were hackers in every third game. All the beacons would change red. You couldn't do anything, and you would lose so many league points, resources, wins, and all that. And it was extremely ass. So that's one category that has actually been improved. It doesn't mean it can't be improved more, because the occasional hacker does pop up. And I do know that hacking clans are still a very big concern, where entire clans have been like kind of stained with the hacking stamp. And I don't know how they should be dealt with, but they should probably be dealt with in one way or the other, because enabling them is not going to help it at all. And anyway, so yeah, that's hacking. Okay, so that brings us to the War Robots player base in 2025. So I think the player base is kind of split into a couple different categories. There's new players, which should hopefully always exist, but they may stick around for a while, they may not, but hopefully new players should always be joining a game. I think that's a good indication of how much a game is growing and how well it's functioning. And then there's the player that has stuck around for a long time in Warbots, is mostly free to play, but probably has spent a little bit of money one way or the other. And then there's like the meta whale player who constantly chases the meta and doesn't really care if they're spending money or not. They just want to be as powerful and competitive as possible, which is one way to play the game. And I think by far the best way to play the game is that free-to-play / low expenditure way. It's way more enjoyable and not constantly chasing a meta. That being said, I feel like it's understandable, but we've all seen like the Warbots community or player base has become more toxic over time. But that's kind of just like a symptom of a game going in a certain direction. Like you can literally see it with any game. Everybody loves games when everything's going great, but then as pay-to-win mechanics or things like that move into a game, all of a sudden players get angry, and then that shows up on whatever it is, Discord, Reddit, YouTube, and that kind of accelerates and grows exponentially over time. So it's almost like, yeah, the player base over the years has got more toxic, and you can't really blame them, but it's kind of just built in where it's like, yeah, if there's going to be a rebalance, and if new things are going to be nerfed, and bad things are going to happen to the game, then it's going to seep into the community, and then players are not going to be happy. It's just kind of, you can't really get mad at players for doing that, because even players that complain a lot, it is annoying. We're like, dude, okay, we get it. The Condor got nerfed. We all saw it coming. It's annoying. We know, blah, blah, blah. But they kind of have a point too. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the player base and where I think it's at. And hopefully, I mean, there's still always things to look forward to. And that kind of brings us to the last topic, okay? Where do we go from here? So we were 11 years into Warbots, and I don't think anyone expected the game to survive this long, because I don't know what the average lifespan of a live service game is, but 11 years is definitely over the mark. And how I look at it, maybe I'm in a different boat than most, but I kind of like to look forward and focus on the positives. Even when most things are bleak, things that are positive to me are like playing in squads. Personally, I like to run, you guys know, that like old school mixed with new school builds to try them out. I'll usually always try out like the newest robot or newest weapon, and then I'll kind of store it away and be like, okay, I'll check this again in a month or two with a different build, and then we can reevaluate it and try it on like a new, I don't know, put the new weapon on an older robot and see how that works. But you kind of have to find how you want to enjoy the game. And for some players, I mean, like, you can't blame them. If they want to spend a ton of money and be competitive, then so be it. But that probably is not going to ever change because, you know, since the Dashbots were released in, like, what, 2018? And since then, players have complained about, like, the pay-to-win parts of the game. And it's kind of crappy to say, I just don't think that's going to change in the foreseeable future unless a massive overhaul happens. But you kind of have to find a way you want to enjoy the game, and chasing the meta is not the way to do that. And even if you're going free to play, which I think, I don't know what the numbers on like free to play players versus pay to win versus new players or whatever, but there's still plenty of robots that you can play in the game and be competitive with and actually have fun, like those robots I talked about the other day, like the Pathfinder, Behemoth, Luchador, Rook, the Bedwear's in that camp now. There's so many different robots and weapons that are actually enjoyable to use, and you can actually be competitive, but you probably won't ever get to the point, because sometimes, you guys know, we all know, alright, when you're in battle, and you're in, like let's say a Curie, and you're staring down a Mauler, there's literally nothing you could do. You could be the, I don't know, the Gordon Ramsay of Warbots. That doesn't make sense. And you still would not be able to take down that Mauler. There's always going to be that gap where it's like, okay, there's obviously going to be an equipment difference with robots and weapons where the gap can't be closed no matter how good you are. And that's the reality of it. But there's still ways to enjoy it. So that's kind of my thoughts. Maybe I'm rambling a little bit. But that's how I see Warbots right now, where you kind of have to accept certain things in the game, which is crappy to say, but it doesn't mean don't push for good things to happen, because we do have good things happen, and it is improvement. Like the pilot update, which I think is coming relatively soon, is a good improvement. The cryo buff that happened was a good improvement. Certain changes are good, and we should emphasize those and push more of those. And then we should continue to criticize bad things. But just make sure, if you're playing Warbots for, you know, if you're a long-term player, just try to focus on the things that you like, and try not to worry about the things that suck. Peace out. Chicken nuggets.